Hi, everybody. I'm Ron,
And I'm Suzanne.
and you're listening to the Monday Briefing. Hey, Suzanne.
Hey, how are you today?
Awesome. How are you?
I am awesome as well.
Okay, cool. You ready to go? You want to start talking about the briefing?
Well, first we have to mention our sponsor.
Oh, okay.
So this episode of the Monday Briefing is sponsored by Booker B. Owl Handyman Services. Who are you going to call when you need something fixed? Call Booker B. Owl Handyman Services. Ron, ask me what happened at my house this weekend.
Suzanne, what happened at your house this weekend?
A leak under the sink. And how are you going to get a plumber to the house on a Sunday? So I called Booker B. Owl Handyman Services, and he flew right over. He was fast, friendly, and affordable, and he fixed the leak. He accepts check, Venmo, or a bag of live field mice. It was amazing service. So whether your house is a hole in the tree or an actual house, call Booker B. Owl Handyman Services for all of your needs.
Okay.
All right, now that we paid the bill with our sponsor, go ahead with the Monday Briefing.
Is that the exclusive person you have work on your house is Booker V. Owl?
Well, now it is. It was great, Ron. He was fantastic.
Okay.
Came right over, he fixed it.
All right, good to know.
It was great. We didn't, Brian didn't fix it because the pipe probably would have exploded. Our house would have been flooded because he fixed things with Legos and electrical tape. And a regular plumber probably would have been a fortune on a Sunday afternoon.
You heard it, everybody. Come to the Monday Briefing to learn about all of our wonderful sponsors.
The Owl Handyman Services exclusive sponsor of the Monday Briefing.
It was the only one we could get.
So far. I'm pretty sure we're gonna have some great sponsors jumping on pretty soon.
We'll see. How do you think last week did? Did you get any feedback from anybody? Did you hear anything?
Yes, one person.
One person, and what did they say?
LOL, you and Ron are a podcast.
Oh, okay. All right. That seems like some positive feedback, I suppose.
Yeah, basically, so how you can go on iTunes podcast and you can rate people stars. Ron and I would like to be rated in LOLs.
Oh, there you go.
And thumbs ups.
All right. Thumbs and LOLs.
Right.
That sounds fantastic.
And bags of field mice.
And bags of field mice. We got to pay the bill somehow. Okay, let's talk about some of these things in the Monday Briefing that we have today. All right, cool. So what do we have up first? I have a handful of COVID-19 updates, good updates for the most part, being that we've been in the pandemic for a bit over a year now. But I was reading the news this morning, and AstraZeneca vaccine, so that one has come out, and from what I've been reading, it's less of an impact on kind of the US stockpile of vaccines, because it looks like we'll be set pretty well with the Pfizer, the Moderna, and the Johnson & Johnson. But when you think about the global vaccination of everybody, it's kind of nice to have another player in place. And the vaccine looks like it's 79% effective, which is really fantastic. So I was very happy to see that one.
Did you do anything to celebrate the 1-year COVID anniversary?
1-year COVID anniversary. No, I didn't celebrate the 1-year COVID anniversary, but I did celebrate the 1-year anniversary that coincides with that, which was Suzanne McCauley's first day at Pioneer Library System.
Oh, right? Yeah, and which will now mark another anniversary. We can celebrate a year. Ron's first Shamrock Shake.
Yeah.
So we have all these special things happening in March now.
Yeah, who would have thought that COVID would be one of them?
COVID, Suzanne, Shamrock Shakes.
Those are the triple threat.
Hat trick.
Hat trick. That's right. Next up, we have vaccines in New York. So as of this morning, looks like there's 25.7% of New Yorkers who have received at least one of their vaccine doses. There's a bunch of other stats that you can take a look at if you're interested in checking that out at the New York Vaccine Tracker. Link is in the briefing. And then we've been talking a lot about the paid leave for receiving COVID-19 vaccine. And that came up at the system meeting a lot, if you remember, Suzanne. There were quite a few questions about eligibility, some other things that just came up with it. And right now it's in effect. So if an employee comes up to you and says, hey, I'm getting my first or second dose of vaccine, I need some time off, it's paid time off that you have to allot to them. There are still a lot of unanswered questions about this, like if employers can ask for a proof of vaccine, or if they can use this time for recovery from side effects, or if there's a time, if employers can recommend scheduled times, or if there's any retroactive payment of time off. So we're still waiting on some answers to that. These are just not outlined in the law. So it's just unknown right now. So we'll see what happens when we move forward with that one. But libraries should be prepared to address these requests for leave and provide paid leave immediately. So just keep that in mind. And I also have a nice little article in there from HR Works that talks about this a bit too.
Yeah, and I think, my sister who lives on Long Island, she was trying to schedule her appointment last week, and she kept running into roadblocks where, it was before I think this law went into effect. She was like, well, I can't miss work. When am I going to get my appointment? And she was having a really hard time scheduling her appointment. So I just think if employers are mindful of this, and whenever your employee can get, if it's a 9:30 and they're scheduled for work, like that's great. Just give them the time off and let them go, so they don't have to keep pushing off this shot, another week, or trying to change their work schedule to accommodate this shot. When anyone is available to get the shot, they should just be able to go and get it, and we should all just really be flexible so we can get shots in as many arms as possible.
Absolutely. And kind of the point of the whole the law is to be as flexible as possible to allow for everything that we can have done.
And if we learned anything from 2020, it's to be flexible.
Be flexible. 2020, the year of flexibility.
Yep.
Or inflexibility in some cases, but we choose flexibility. All right. Last week, Suzanne, you and I talked a little bit about the quarantining of domestic travel. There hasn't been new information, but I did read a little bit more about it so we could have a whole section in the briefing. And it looks like starting April 1st, there's going to be some changes to domestic travel where the people will no longer be required to quarantine after entering New York from another U.S. state or territory. There's still some things in there. So if there is symptom or if you're exposed to COVID, you still have to do symptom monitoring, strict adherence to all recommended practices, making sure that you're still wearing face masks and social distance and everything like that. But this could change the game a little bit in terms of how people can travel throughout the country. Still, I like the idea of paying attention to what the CDC has to say about domestic travel, but looks like our state is being a little bit more relaxed on some of the situations that have come up. And then we have some trustee workshop follow-up. You want to talk about that, Suzanne?
Sure. So first, thank you to everyone who was able to attend developing library policies last week. We had 46 trustees and directors attend and listen to Ron and I talk and ask questions, and it was really great. It was our first trustee workshop for 2021, and we came out pretty strong. So thank you again. The recording as well as the ALDOCS page can be found online, and if you are reading the weekly update, or you can read it after you listen to it, you can click on the link right over to that. And we do have some more trustee workshops coming up. The next one is going to be key laws and regulations for libraries. That's going to be Tuesday, April 20th at 6 p.m. So we hope you can join us for that. And again, these are really great workshops for trustees and directors. I think it's important that you're both hearing the information. So please share with your trustees and try to make it as well.
Especially for the law one that we're going to be talking about, because we don't have it completely sketched out yet, but there will be a handful of different regulations and laws that will cover that boards and directors really need to pay attention to for things like policy development, and then just making sure that they're doing everything legal. All right, next we have volunteer handbook. So in the latter part of 2019, I sent out a sample volunteer handbook that libraries could use to kind of separate what their employees are doing versus what their volunteers are doing, because of the sticky situations that can happen between the Department of Labor and volunteers. So I went ahead and included that one because my guess is that there were quite a few volunteer handbook projects that were probably postponed because of the pandemic. So there were a few updates that I made to the handbook, and I included it in here so you can take a look again and either update one that you have that already exists, or if it's a project that you would like to take on, it's there. And then lastly, I have just a brief kind of heads up. So later today, there's going to be a Nylon announcement for reopening libraries. And this is a joint announcement from the Division of Library Development and PALISDO, which is the group of public library system directors. And they started a committee to talk about reopening in libraries. And they had all libraries fill out a survey that went out a while back. And this is kind of a snapshot of what that survey said. And there isn't any action or anything that needs to happen once you see this update, but it will likely announce some type of timeline for when libraries should be open the minimum number of hours to comply with minimum standards. So there shouldn't be anything else in there, but I'll keep an eye on it. And if it does say anything specific, I'll be sure to update people on it. Does that sound good? You got anything else, Suzanne?
Yeah, ask me what else happened at my house this weekend.
What else happened at your house this weekend?
So, I live in Irondequoit.
Does this have to do with Booker B. Owls?
It definitely does have to do with Booker B. Owls.
It's a closeout ad. Okay. All right. Go ahead.
All right. So I live in Irondequoit. It gets a little windy. It's kind of near the lake, right? Okay. So we had an extension put on our house last summer, and it was so windy, like some of the siding just blew right off. So what I did was I called Booker B. Owl Handyman Services. He flew right over, and he was able to put the siding back on the house. It looks better than before. And so who are you gonna call when you need something fixed? You gotta call Booker B. Owl Handyman Services, the exclusive sponsor of the Monday briefing. But if your house is a hole in the tree or an actual house, you should call Booker B. Owl Handyman Services for all your needs.
Suzanne, I feel like we're gonna need to find some new sponsors. I don't know how many times people are gonna want to hear who you're gonna call.
Listen, when I go to open my pool this summer, who am I gonna call? I think I'm gonna call Booker B. Owl Handyman Services.
How many of these do you have?
What, Ron? There's a lot of stuff that has to be done around the house.
I get it.
And my boss keeps me at work at all these hours. I don't have time to open the pool. I don't have time to throw in chlorine tabs. Who am I going to get to do it? Booker B. Owl Handyman Services.
All right, you heard it. Our exclusive sponsor of the Monday briefing. All right. Yeah,
maybe next week we'll have another sponsor.
Maybe.
I feel like McDonald's should sponsor us.
The Shamrock Shake should sponsor.
Yeah. Or
Dunkin', yeah. Well, we'll put a call out if anyone knows of any sponsors that should sponsor the Monday briefing for next week. Let us know.
And we aren't really allowed to accept gifts.
That's true.
But if a burrito bowl from Chipotle showed up here, we're gonna eat it.
That's true. That is true.
So if Chipotle wants to sponsor us and send us a burrito bowl, we gotta eat lunch.
So be it. That's true.
Yeah.
All right. Well, this has been the second episode of the Monday briefing. And as we like to say, why read the briefing in 2 minutes when you can listen to it in 10?
Or 12 or 14.
Or however long this happens to be today.
Remember to rate us with LOLs and thumbs ups, and you can just shoot those to us in our inbox and make us feel good.
Yeah. And if you do like listening to this rather than reading it and having, I don't know, maybe a little bit of laugh or like a face palm or something, let us know.
Right.
Cool. All right.
Cool.
Well, thanks, Suzanne, for hanging out with me.
And thanks, Ron Kursop.
Absolutely. All right.
And thanks, Book of the Owl Handyman Services, for sponsoring the Monday briefing.
Okay. Goodbye, everybody.
Goodbye.